Hey everybody, welcome back to another Volition stream. I'm Josh Stinson, the video editor / stream czar, producer, whatever, here at Volition. And we're doing another dev chat today where we talk to one developer here at the studio and see what they do and like what their discipline is all about. And introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm James Kotzian and I'm a mission designer here.
And over in the corner, we got Mike.
Hey y'all, Mike Watson here. I will be moderating chat and feeding any questions you might have to Josh to ask James. So get those questions ready, and I'm going to turn you back over to them.
All right, thanks, Mike. So this isn't your first time being on stream here, but it's been a while, right?
It has been a while.
Yeah,
I had a run for a little while where I was coming on a good amount, but...
Yeah, what all were you on for? Was it during the AOM, the dev streams we did for that?
Yeah, when we talk about some of the agents, and then I was on when we were talking to some of the voice actors too.
Oh, right.
Those were really fun.
Yeah, those were super good.
Voice actors are interesting people.
Yeah. But, you worked on Age of Mayhem. Was that your first game you worked on here?
Yes, that was my first game, yeah.
So when did you first start working here? Because I remember you just like popping up one day in the studio, but it's been long enough now that I don't remember when in development.
That's actually how it happened. I just sort of popped into existence.
Yeah, you didn't exist
right
before.
Into Volition, yeah.
Yeah.
No, so I started as an intern.
Right.
When was it? Summer of 2015. I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was only like a few months after I started working here then.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was a 10th back then.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got the internship, which wasn't easy. I first got involved with Volition at all by I was looking for an internship in the game industry.
Right.
And I went on a road trip with my mom from Michigan to Wisconsin to go to the Midwest Game Developers Conference.
Okay.
If you ever remember that, it doesn't exist anymore.
I know about it. Yeah, I never went there. But wait, are you from Michigan?
I'm from Michigan.
Okay, me too.
Oh,
Where
really?
in Michigan?
I didn't know that. West Bloomfield.
Okay, I'm from Genesee. Do you know about Genesee?
I don't know about Genesee.
Okay, no one does.
Okay.
It's classified as a hamlet.
Okay.
But anyways, it's really close to Flint, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
So
nice.
Yeah, that's where I'm from. But,
Yeah.
Man, there's a decent amount. I mean, I guess it makes sense that there's a decent amount of people from Michigan here because it's the closest game dev to Michigan, except for like the two that exist in that state. But
It's also
I'm from
just
Michigan too. Woo, woo.
and Mike's from Michigan too. Shit.
Michigander stream. I like it.
Man.
I mean, we got good people in Michigan, so it makes sense they come to a cool place like this, right?
Yeah, we got a lot of MSU people here too.
Yeah, they're all right.
Okay, do you care about
I went
that?
to U of M.
Okay, me too. U of M Flint.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
I wanted to go to the one in Ann Arbor, but it was just like U of M Flint was like a 15-minute drive away from me. So it was like,
it's hard to beat.
yeah, it was way nicer doing that. Saved me a lot of money too. But
Yeah.
anyways.
Oh, yeah, I bet. But yeah, I went to this video game developers conference, and I met someone from Volition there. I think it was Liz Wells, who I don't believe works here anymore.
Yeah.
But we chatted, and then she put me in touch with Anoop later on.
Okay, yeah.
And then I talked to Anoop, and then he sent me a design test. I did the design test. They flew me out here for like a 6-hour-long on-site interview.
Yep, that's how they go.
It was grueling, and I was so exhausted by the end of the day. And then I had to like fly back to Ann Arbor and finish a computer science project that was due the next day.
Yeah.
I missed my flight back because I was an idiot and went to the wrong gate. And I was just like waiting there for my like flight, and like it didn't come. And then I was like, I looked and they had changed they had updated it on the thing to a different gate, and then ran over there, but it was like too late. So I had to spend the night in the Chicago airport, cranking away at my project, and then I finally flew back the next day, and got back to my apartment, slept for like 3 hours, woke up and like pounded out some more code for like 12 hours, and submitted my project like 5 minutes before it was due.
Wow.
And it was one of those things where I had like an auto grader, and then so you're just like waiting and hoping that it gives you a good score because I don't have time to like submit anything else, and luckily I like got the good score.
Okay, good.
And later on I got like a call from Anoop saying I got the internship.
Nice.
So like everything worked out.
Yeah.
And it was a good moment, but it could have gone much
Just
worse.
hearing about the like turning in 5 minutes beforehand because you got stuck at the airport is like just hearing that stresses me out. And I've been out of school for a while. Yeah, I was really curious, because you said that you started here as a temp.
Yeah.
Just how different interviewing as a temp or a intern versus like a full-time position was. But it sounds like it was actually pretty similar.
Yeah, I think it's a similar process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't re-interview me for the full-time gig. It was just...
Yeah, same. Yeah, it was strangely enough, I didn't get any like official test, like art tests or anything. Like there was a part where it was just like our previous video editor just like brought me into his office and like, okay, just edit something with the Volition logo, make it do something cool. And I was just like, oh god, okay.
Yeah.
Because they never even mentioned a test or anything.
Oh yeah.
They specifically told you that you were going to do an art test, right?
A design test.
Or
yeah.
Design test. Sorry, yeah.
And they sent it to me before they did a on-site test.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I had some forewarning.
Okay, yeah. For me, it was just like, oh god, okay, I have 2 hours to do something.
Yeah, that's stressful.
It turned out fine.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, I'm here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you start off as an intern. How long were you an intern before?
For a summer. I was intern for a summer.
Okay.
And then that was my junior year of college at University of Michigan. And then I went back, finished off my senior year, got my degree in computer science, and then ended up back here doing the full-time thing.
All right. And when was that when you
since.
were back here for the full-time thing?
2016. So July of 2016.
Okay.
So I've been here coming up on 4 years.
Yeah. Time goes really fast once you start working here, it seems.
Does.
It's
I think it's a good sign though.
Yeah.
The days go by fast and the years have gone by fast. So.
Yeah, it's just weird though, like reflecting back on like previous projects that I've worked on here. It's just like Ages of Mayhem felt
almost
like
3 years ago now.
Yeah,
that's
almost,
crazy.
Yeah,
When
and
it released,
like
yeah.
for me, it felt like AOM now is just like a blip. Like it felt like it went by really fast, and no, that was several years.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even here for the whole thing. Neither of
Yeah.
us were. Like there was pre-production before that too, and it's crazy. It's that much time has already gone by.
Yeah.
But so yeah, you started working on AOM full time, and what were you doing for AOM? Because it was different from what you do now, right?
Yes, pretty different. So I was on the agents team, so working on their designs from not an art perspective, but from a systems perspective. So specifically, what is their combat kit like? What is their primary weapon? What are their special abilities? What's their ultimate ability? What sort of upgrades do they have? What do they feel like to play? Do they have like more health, or are they a character that has like way more shield than health? And yeah, that sort of stuff.
Okay, so yeah, I do remember there was like a big poster, especially on the second floor throughout the hallways. I believe people were still using them for like making the final agents of the game too. There's like that big triangle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like how to balance them and all that. Were you using that for what you worked on?
I think we moved away from that at a certain point. Yeah.
Because I remember there was a couple different triangles, and they eventually started getting a little more simplified.
Yeah, definitely. And then I came on like pretty late in the game, and so I mostly, for the base game, was working on agents that had already mostly been designed and like iterating on those things. Jewel was the one character who needed kind of a redesign, so I was able to kind of put my stamp on that.
Right.
And she's the one who uses the turret, and she has this pet turret that you can buff and then give it a sort of boost so that it does like extra damage for X amount of time, that sort of thing. So she was interesting to work on because she was like they wanted like a really quirky character, and that was kind of like the first time I got to exercise my design chops.
That's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool, but definitely a challenge, and I think I definitely learned some stuff working on her. And then I really got to have a say in make some design choices when I did the DLC characters of Gat and Safe Word. Yeah.
Okay. Working on Jewel, how many iterations did you have before you came up with like what she eventually like was in the final game? Did you have multiple different ideas for how she would work, or was it always kind of the turret thing and just iterating on that?
All right, time to think back.
if you can
3
remember.
years ago. She had already been worked on a good amount, but then for some reason, we felt that her combat just wasn't feeling good and it wasn't working. And I don't think we were leaning so much into her turret thing. It was like kind of just it might have been like a special ability that she'd throw out a turret and then it would use itself up and then go away, something like that. So I think then we looked at leaning way more into the turret thing and being like, okay, what if it's like, Jewel can take out some baddies herself, but she's more of a pet class where she really uses this turret to deal damage, and you have to be strategic about where you place it, and that was a big change because that wasn't something that the old design had. So we gave her kind of this unique thing where she could throw out her turret and then recall it, and she could only have one turret at a time. So you had to, put it down someplace where there's some enemies, and then maybe there were some more enemies coming up over here, and the turret had already dealt with the ones where it was at, so you had to recall it and throw it back out again.
Right.
And you could do some pretty cool things with that too, especially because you could upgrade it so she could really throw that thing like a frisbee.
Yeah,
and you
I remember that.
Kind of get some style points by bouncing it off of a wall to get it around a corner.
Couldn't you also hurt enemies just by bopping them with the turret when you threw it at them?
We made sure that was a thing you could do.
I
could
remember,
snipe, chuck it at their head.
Yeah, I remember that. We have a question from Matrix Vinci in the chat asking, have you been able to play the board game yet to see how Jewel translated to tabletop?
I haven't been able to play Jewel or the board game in its final form. I did. They did come here to play test it with us, and I was able to play through a playtesting session. Be interested to see what they do with Jewel and how they have the relationship with their turret, if they have that.
I haven't actually been able to play that board game at all yet, not even when in its earlier state. It's set up in the game room. It's just down the hall and around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
And it's big. It's a huge board game.
Yeah. Oh,
it's so big.
It's a beast of a board game.
It's crazy just it being this multi-tiered thing that you and the buildings can be rearranged It sounds like from what other people would play, it does sound like it mimics what AOM was pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to play it sometime. It just seems like a very daunting, big time investment style thing. Doesn't look like a game that you do in an hour. It's like a
Well, yeah, the company
serious.
The company who made Academy Games.
Yeah.
They're known for these tactical war style games that have a lot of meat to them, but you have to spend a little bit of a time to learn all their intricacies.
They're really cool looking, but they're definitely super serious. It looks like. Yeah. Which is
But I like the asymmetry aspect to it, where one person plays as some 3 agents, and another person plays as Legion. So they'll have one supervillain character that also has abilities like the agents and stuff, but they also have all these minions that they can kind of use as cannon fodder and stuff. Yeah.
It's also an incredible board game if you love miniatures, because there's a lot of miniatures in that thing.
Yeah. And I've always wanted a little miniature of a character that I've worked on and stuff. So
that's cool.
Having one for GAT is pretty awesome.
Yeah. By the way, Ed Mixon in the chat says that they love Jewel.
Aw, thank you.
But yeah, you worked on Jewel and you worked on some of those DLC characters. If we can actually switch to the PC over here, we can take a look at some of the gameplay specifically for Safe Word, who is, for people who don't know, is Kinsey from Saints Row. By the way, this is not footage I captured or official footage. This is just some YouTube footage I pulled off the internet from the Gamer Man. So thank you, the Gamer Man, for recording some gameplay of Safe Word here. But yeah, what was it like working on her?
So she's a very quirky character in both personality, and we wanted to match that with the gameplay as well. And working on both GAT and Safe Word, it was interesting because you kind of had a starting off point where you knew what these characters' personalities were like, and so we wanted to make a combat kit that reflected those personalities. And what was also interesting is that like Gat and Safe Word are very different types of characters, and so they ended up having like opposite styles of combat as well. So Gat is very going guns blazing, very improvisational. We wanted that feeling with him. Very much a heavy damage dealer. Whereas Safe Word is not someone who's, like usually a fighter in the Saints Row games. Like she's a hacker. And so we had to think about what would a hacker person look like in Agents of Mayhem, where, we have the hacking minigame, but that's not going to help you kill these bad guys. So we were thinking like, hacking is like doing something special to circumvent a system. It's like not doing the brute force obvious approach. So what we decided to go, the closest analog that we found in our game is status effects. So status effects in Agents of Mayhem affect enemies in certain ways. You can make it so they do less damage. You can slow them so they can't run as fast. Also, another step to that is immobilize them so they can't move at all. You can stun them. What else? You can take their shields down so that then they're exposed to have more damage dealt to them. And so we decided that she was going to be all about the status effects. And so almost everything she does inflicts some sort of a status effect on them. With her line attack especially, and then also there's all sorts of upgrades in her progression where she can has a chance to apply a certain status effect. And if players notice, they'll see that there are some ways that I can make sort of a stun build where like I keep I have a good chance to stun with her main weapon, but there's also a chance to stun with her line attack, and so now I can sort of like have these stacked effects on enemies. And then you see here the ultimate ability, which we really wanted to play into like the hacking thing. Like initially we wanted to do something where it's like you recruit an enemy to fight for you because you've like. Here's a little hand wave, but you like hack their brain or something like that, right? You sort of possess them. And that's kind of like a very hackery kind of thing where you use the enemy against itself. But we couldn't do that tech-wise. But what we were able to do was make it so you have this sort of these special bullets, and you do sort of hack and possess an enemy, but instead of shooting at them, they'll run towards the nearest group of enemies, and they'll explode themselves along with like anyone around them. So still kind of get the same feeling, but was something we could actually accomplish. And then the last part to her is like she has a quirky personality, so we want her combat to feel quirky. So she has this kind of weird weapon where it charges up. And the more you charge it up, the more bullets she'll release from it, from this sort of like hackery power glove thing she's got. So there's kind of a risk-reward thing where if you're like, the longer you hold it down, the more time you spent not doing anything for enemies to shoot at you, but you'll deal more damage when you release that. And she can, you can see if an enemy has low health, then maybe I don't charge it up very high because I don't need to take it out.
So working, like you brought up her glove that is her weapon. When you're coming up with a combat kit for somebody, it's just like, she's going to be using like this glove. Did she already have that in her character art or in her design, or is that something where it's just like, we want her to have like a cool like hackery power glove, and they go and like design that visually for you?
I think that came from design because we were thinking like we wanted her to have a different feeling weapon, and it's like, what kind of weapon would a hacker have in our universe? And she probably wouldn't. I don't think like a gun makes as much sense for her. She would want something techier, And yeah, a power glove I think fits the bill for that pretty well. And then so yeah, I would say like a lot of her combat design came from us thinking about what would a quirky hacker character, how would that combat play out in Agents of Mayhem?
Right.
But then a little bit came out from filling design holes. So, one common attack that is seen in a lot of games is like a line attack. And we realized that just like wasn't something that any of the characters had, but it's very useful, as you can see right there.
Yeah.
So we decided to give it to her, and we threw that to the art department, and they came up with like having this sort of energy wall that looks very hackery with these kind of circuit designs to them. Right. And she can shoot that, and it can go through walls. She can the players can pick different versions of that. They can do the medium one. That has a medium width and a medium speed, or they can do and a medium range to it, but they can also do like a smaller one that goes way farther and is way faster, or there's like a big sort of tidal wave one that's really wide but moves really slowly and doesn't go out very far.
Also, I was just thinking, how does it feel that you said you also did design work for GAT, right? How does it feel to work on two Saints Row characters?
It felt cool. It felt like, this was the first time that I really got to design stuff, and it felt really cool that I was being trusted to work on some pretty like iconic characters in Volition's history. So it felt nice to have that trust.
This is also cool to like just being able to watch this and to see more of what she can do, because like I saw her working when she was like a lot earlier on, but I wasn't around the studio during the time when she was released, so I just never actually like played as her. Yeah. In her final form, at least. So, yeah, it's really cool seeing what she can she can do. Yeah. Also, I just got to say that it's like another just reminder that like the VFX team did some crazy good work in this game. VFX. She's got some really good looking effects to her. Her
model's great. Her animations are amazing. Lindsay modeled or did the animations for her, and we want as much character as we can to come out of our side of it. Yeah. But like a lot of that sort of feeling comes from things like the VFX and the art and the animation. Yeah. So like you can tell that she's not the most athletic of our roster here, and the animations super show that by the way she like kind of does this awkward run of someone who doesn't run a whole lot, and when she does her long fall and hits the ground, she doesn't like land all cool and like Spider-Man-y. Right. She like smacks down and like belly flops and like hits her face and just kind of goes like, whoa. That's
great. Also, you mentioned Lindsay working on this. You specifically mean Lindsay Penley, right?
Yes.
But I want to also ask you about what you do now. But before we get to that, I wanted to also ask you, like, this is your first job in the games industry, right? Yep. Okay, so you didn't work on anywhere else that was even like related to the games industry? You weren't doing any programming or anything anywhere else?
Nope. I did worked a job as an intern making mobile apps in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
For the summer before I was an intern here.
All right. But cool. Yeah. So I forget, did you say specifically earlier that you were looking specifically to get into the games industry?
I was, yeah. Okay. So, like, I've been making games for a long time. I worked on games. I made games using GameMaker.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day, and like the very simple, not GameMaker Studio, but like the very.
I remember that thing. I use it too.
Basic GameMaker, yeah. And I grew up playing games. Actually, the first game I ever played was Descent.
Really?
Yeah, which Volition made, and my dad set me up with like the.
You have a flight stick?
Yeah, I had a flight stick and everything, and eventually he took it away from me because he thought I was too much of a zombie playing it.
Oh man!
But I was pretty young. I was pretty young, but I grew up playing Descent, and then later on my dad would we got a GameCube, and I would watch him play like Resident Evil and stuff, and I'd like hide behind the couch watching him play that. And then he downloaded GameMaker for me on our laptop, and I would make games with that. And whenever there was like an open-ended assignment in school, and it was like an English class thing, and it could be like, make whatever you want. I'd just make a game.
Yeah.
So I made like in middle school, like Watership Down the game. And it involved my very bad bunny graphics, and you would be like running around. It was kind of like a platformer, and you had to like stomp on rats and stuff, and then you would like encounter another rabbit, and a huge dialogue box would pop up, and it would be like some philosophical dialogue about communism, and then you'd keep smush some more rats and keep going. And so I did that, you know, all growing up, and then when I got to college, I would do some game jams and things like that, and work on small side project stuff. And then, but I did the computer science degree there, so I really love programming, and so I was kind of debating between a job in tech and a job in games. And I had a lot of fun making mobile apps, and I think I would have enjoyed a career in tech, but there was like a pivotal moment where I went to a career fair junior year and just like looked at all the companies, and it was like an engineering career fair, so it was like all tech companies and mechanical engineering companies. It's just like, man, all these jobs sound so boring. Like, games are so much cooler. So I really gunned it for the game industry, and made a pivotal choice. I had a really good offer. In tech, I chose Volition over Apple, actually.
Oh, wow!
And
holy moly!
Do not regret my choice at all. It's
nice.
This is way more fun.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool here. Like there. So I went to. I've said this before, real quick though. I went to college for graphic design.
Yeah.
I was entirely into art. I really like games too, but I never really pursued the idea of seriously working in games or making games, just because, especially for me, like programming aspect, I've never really been able to get a handle on it too well. So any like personal projects, a lot harder to do, unless of course you're doing like click and play or like earlier Game Maker, which is stuff I did mess with. Also, did you ever use RPG Maker?
I didn't. No,
oh,
I
man.
didn't mess with it.
I've yet to meet anyone here who used RPG Maker.
Yeah?
That was like my main thing. I thought I would have met somebody who used that by now.
Yeah, it's very much in the same vein as Game Maker.
Yeah, but it was. I also eventually decided, like, I'm going to try and get into the games industry just because, one, where I was from in Michigan, not a lot of graphic design work needed, and two, like, other offers I got were, like, things that were a lot more, it was like, oh, do you want to work on a video codec? That probably paid pretty decently, but also working on video compression doesn't sound nearly as exciting, and working on trailers and stuff for a video game, so that was also how, I made that choice. Also, we got a comment from Feared Symmetry in the chat saying, get James to release Watership Down the game. That is all I have ever wanted in life. Give it to me.
I promise you it's better in your head than it actually is.
I think I did that once, too. Made like a game for a project just because I was like, oh, they didn't say I couldn't.
Yeah.
But it was actually... I had to... For a graphic design course earlier on, there was like... with the theming of like the alphabet A to Z, you had to cover some topic with, and there had to be some aspect of that topic that was represented by each of those letters. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, the video games, of course. Yeah. And I made a book that was it was a hardcover book, but the hardcover was an NES cart that I split open, put on hinges, and took a Dremel and took all the stuff so the actual book inside could stay in there. But I also made like a really terrible like Super Mario World ROM hack where you just ran through a straight level, and every block you jumped, it would make a dialogue box with that page of the book in it. But
I hope you got a good grade.
I did.
That seemed awesome.
People really like that, and also everyone is just super. Especially anyone who like didn't know anything about games, other than like, oh, my brother played that when I was young or something. Like you just show them the insides of an NES card, and they're just like, what? Yeah. So it was really easy to impress. I feel. But I think that's the only time I've ever. I used Unreal Engine 2, whichever one from the early 2000s, to make something for an English class because I didn't want to draw.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, eventually I picked up Unity in college and messed around with that and would do game jams and stuff. And we actually did a hackathon at U of M. You know hackathons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess explain it to the audience.
Yeah, so
too, just in
hackathons are
case.
basically a competition where you have some strict amount of time, like 48 hours, to make something cool.
Okay.
And sometimes they're based around a theme. It's like a game jam, right? But it's more, hackathons are broader and you can make any sort of piece of tech. So I was thinking like, all right, well, I've made some games, so people like games. I'll make a game, and hopefully that like makes it far in this sort of tech competition. And so I teamed up with 3 other people, and it took place in Detroit, and we made virtual reality broom flying.
Oh wow.
So it was I had like the DK1 for Oculus.
Yeah.
And we used Unity, and we took a broomstick and we took a Wii remote and we like duct taped that shit to the broomstick, and then we put the Oculus on people and we had a fan blowing on them, and you control the broom by like tilting down and tilting up, and you would roll by rolling and stuff.
That's great.
And I made a little Hogwarts Harry Potter world for you to fly around in, and yeah, people got a kick out of it.
People like that?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
we got
cool.
second place. So
Oh, nice.
it worked out. Yeah, yeah, definitely like it got by on some novelty factor because VR was pretty new then, but
Yeah.
and you looked ridiculous like doing
So yeah, you mentioned that using Unity for that. Unity has constantly been improving over the years.
Yeah.
I don't know how recently you've used Unity, but how does that
still using.
how does that compare to like the internal tools we have here?
There are a lot of similarities. I think all 3D game engines, if you learn one, you can pick up the other ones.
Right.
And a lot of things I think are stylistic, like, oh, they organize this way and,
Right.
and this that way.
And some things are probably more tailored to the needs of that specific type of game a studio
Yes.
generally makes, I guess.
And that is the big difference between Volition's tools and like the Unreal Engine and the Unity Engine, which are
Okay.
better for making more like a wider variety of games, whereas Volition's engine is made to make like third-person open-world action games.
Right.
So, that's our bread and butter. So it makes sense that we'd make an engine that makes it so we can really make that kind of game really well. And
Right.
it having tech that facilitates that really lets us punch above our weight. We're not like a giant AAA studio.
No, yeah.
We're actually quite scrappy, especially considering the scope of the games we make. So
Right.
we're able to do that in large part because of our CTG team making this badass open world engine. Where a lot of companies, they have to have like 1,000-person team to make games, these giant open world games, and we can get by on like 200 people doing stuff of similar scope.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear, like, to just see, like, what we're able to make with like you said, a smaller amount of people. And just recently, like, I've come to know, like, how many people worked on a couple other really, like, recent big releases, and it made me think, oh, God, they must be doing something like what we're doing, because it was like Death Stranding had a way smaller team than I thought it did.
Yeah.
It was something around the same amount that we have, I think. And I was fully expecting, anytime like some big budget thing like that comes out, it's just like, oh, it's like 1,000 people or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of the numbers I'm used to seeing with so many things now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool to see how much tools can make a difference.
Yeah.
When they're used like smartly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about what you did for AOM. Now, of course, we're going to have to be a lot more vague talking about current stuff. But yeah, what have you moved at? Like, what are you working on now?
Yeah, so now I am a mission designer. So I'm coming up with and implementing missions in our upcoming project. And it's different from systems design in that I'm designed more for like these 15-minute cycles of fun rather than these 30 seconds of fun. And I'm working as a mission designer. I work with narrative a lot more. And yeah, it is pretty different from systems design, but I really enjoy it. I feel like it's definitely the discipline for me.
Okay. The stuff that you learn from working on like the agents and their combat kits, does any of that stuff kind of apply to this style of thing?
Like the general rules of design and like coming up with something and figuring out if something's working or if it's not, or the kind of process of finding the fun, I think is similar. But yeah, I think systems is more about making these generic mechanics that can be used in a wide variety of situations,
right.
And it can be fun in all those situations. And then in missions, you're kind of saying, okay, how can we use all these mechanics in a fun way? So you're thinking beyond that.
Okay. You spoke that you're also working a little more with narrative and all of that. What is the give and take like, just generally, when you're working on missions, while also making sure it's fitting the narrative or what the writers like want to convey through that? Yeah.
So we kind of work within these boxes, and that's kind of like how all designs happen. Like you being a designer means working within limitations.
Right.
And some of those limitations are tech, some of those limitations are narrative. And you don't want your box to be too small, where you feel like, I can't make anything fun with these limitations. But you don't want it to be too big either, where you're like, I don't know where to start, right? So how we started these missions was we had a narrative box, and we said we wanted to hit this narrative beat. We wanted this to generally happen in this mission. And then we had the freedom to explore within that how that could play out.
Okay. Now coming, kind of having that box to work within, on top of just saying like this is what we want to happen narratively, are they also suggesting like things that maybe they would want to happen in the gameplay along with that? Or is it purely just like story beats you're being?
They definitely can. It depends on what the story beat is, right?
Right.
It can be something where the story beat, it could be accomplished through like, a giant crazy action vehicle section, or maybe it could be accomplished by something a little more subdued and and maybe not as combat focused. There are definitely those types of missions, but then there are some other ones where it's like, all right, we want this kind of mission to be here, and we kind of know the gameplay that's gonna go along with it, and so yeah, there's a much clearer starting off point for those kinds of things.
Now, having a clearer starting off point like that, does that make that easier, or is it like, does that just mean that now you're going to spend even more time like polishing that stuff up? Like iterating on it.
I think usually it's easier because whenever we have story that implies gameplay like that in a major way, we already have a good sense that gameplay is going to work for us generally. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Prince Nero or Nuru, there are 2 O's in the name, asking, how does one become a designer? Amazing work.
Oh, thank you, Prince Nero. So I think you can do some. You can get some education. There's some great books out there. The Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell. Like, I consider that to be like the designer's Bible. It's very good. But I think, like with anything, the best way to learn is by doing. So getting acquainted with some sort of game engine, and especially these days, like there's great free game engines out there. And
Unity is still free to use personally, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's nothing stopping you from making your own stuff. And I think that's the way you learn the best. And you don't even need a team of people. Like, it doesn't have to be good. It can, in fact, I think if you are making your first game, it should be a game that's already been made and it's very simple. It could be like a Flappy Bird or tic-tac-toe even, just to get used to making a game and understanding like how hard it is to make anything. That's the biggest thing. You always underestimate how long things are going to take. But then, like, once you make that base thing, and you sort of replicate it, put a twist to it. So like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe instead of tic-tac-toe, instead of getting 3 in a row, you have to get 4 in a row.
Right.
Or Flappy Bird, you make Flappy Bird, but now the bird moves a completely different way. Or there's like pipes that instead of just being static, they kind of do like this kind of chopper thing, you know, something like that. I think that's a really good starting off point. And then like getting farther along, like making games. I mean, one side of it is like becoming a good designer, and the other side of that is proving that you're a good designer by you know, having a portfolio that you can put together with good looking projects that can easily be viewed with like a video or screenshots or short punchy descriptions, and then being able to sell yourself well in person and in an interview.
Yeah. And like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like there are certain disciplines within the games industry where it feels like even if you didn't specifically like go to a school or something to be trained in that, if you show up like when they have an opening for that position and you've got like a really good looking portfolio and you can prove that you can do this stuff, like even that's like good. Like,
yeah. I mean, I got my degree in computer science, and you know, I usually recommend to people that if there is something that's more traditional that you're into, but you're also into game design stuff, to get the traditional degree and then do your game stuff on the side. That's why I did, and I think you know that enables you to have a good fallback plan or something to sustain yourself while you're making games. That way you don't have to like kill yourself to get something, a degree, kill yourself with debt to get a degree that's niche, and it's a hard industry to break into.
Right.
So that's usually what I recommend to people. And then the thing about design is it like draws from so many different disciplines. Like it draws from writing, it draws from programming, it draws from art. So like I really think that you can, like, having one of those other skills is a good thing for any designer to have. It's good to be a designer who knows how to program, who knows how to art, who knows how to write, and that sort of, it's kind of like a you can kind of become that style of designer. You can be kind of like a more technical designer who can implement a lot of their designs, or you can be a more narrative-driven designer who, you know, whenever you make gameplay, you're really paying attention to how it fits in with the narrative. Like, all that stuff's important and also very marketable.
Okay. And that does actually lead straight into the other thing I was going to ask, which is what are the different disciplines like within design? Like, how different are they from each other?
Yeah. So caveat, these definitions are very different depending on which studio.
This is a thing that's definitely come up across multiple streams now, is like asking somebody to like define what they do, and it's just like, well, what my title means at a different studio is completely different than it is like it's just how it is.
I've only been here, so I only know like what it's like at really I only really know what it's like at Volition.
Yeah.
But so within design, we have system designers, and they're making the mechanics of the game. You know, they're doing combat. If there's combat, they're doing driving, that sort of stuff. There's level design, and so they do the layout of levels to make sure that it works really well with gameplay. And they work closely with environment art to make sure that you know, not only does it work for gameplay, but does it make sense for the art in the space. And they also work closely with mission design to make sure it fits the mission design needs. So they're kind of sandwiched in between those two disciplines. And then there's mission design, and we come up with sort of the high level experience for the missions in our games, and then we kind of act as like the vision holder for those missions. So anything that goes into that mission, we need to make sure it's leading to one cohesive statement that we're saying with that. And so you kind of have to be the glue that holds in all the things together, and you're the one who's making sure that when it all comes together, it all makes sense and it's cohesive. So, you know, you might be talking, you're talking to everyone as a mission designer. You're talking to programmers, you're talking to writers, you're talking to artists, you're talking to level designers, you're talking to environment artists. You're talking to everyone. and it's important to like let other people within have creativity within that mission. But also, you're supposed to be looking at things from a higher level within that mission to make sure that it's all contributing to the same goal.
Okay. So yeah, we got another comment from the chat. Feared Symmetry asking, what's been your favorite design thing anywhere that you've done here? If it's something you can talk about, of course.
Yeah. I don't think I can talk about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I will say there's lots of things we're doing that excite me, that
Totally.
I would love to dive into when things are more public.
Yeah, it is still just always a bummer where it's just like, well, there's cool shit, but we can't some other time,
Yeah,
when
unfortunately,
we
I
can't talk
don't
about
think
stuff.
I can describe it well
Yeah.
at all if without giving away details.
Yeah,
so.
I'll make sure to bring you on for later streams for when we can eventually talk about our current project, so you can bring that stuff up.
What I think is especially interesting too would be to kind of talk about the story of some of these missions that we've been developing, because some of them go through these crazy changes, and like to talk about like where something started and where it ended can sometimes be this wild story, and it's why you see a lot of times in games like sometimes there are like these sort of, it feels like these leftover pieces then in the game that kind of stick out a little bit, and you're like, wait, why was that there? And it's like, oh, that was because like that was a part of a demo that they then exploded into 5 different pieces once for the actual game when it was coming out.
Yeah, I feel like I feel I could notice those things even before I started working in the games industry, but especially now that I've seen what it is like inside a game developer, when I play games now, it's always just like, oh, I bet that was a thing they just ended up repurposing from like a demo they made years ago or something. Yeah, it's always really cool to kind of be able to get a sense for like the history of the design of that game just by looking at it. Yeah. And
some of the stories of like how things came to be are like pretty crazy. It's like, oh my god, this thing got like twisted and turned in every which way, and now it's here. Like, wow.
And I feel like the large majority of games are probably all like that too. Yeah. It's you never end up with your first idea.
Games are hard. Games are very, very hard.
They're super. It's a thing that's kind of opaque generally in the industry, how all this stuff goes down. And of course, we can't just go all willy-nilly and show whatever, but it is a thing here that we try to do when we can to pull back the curtain and show that stuff. Yeah. Especially with our earlier titles where we've done the Break the Build streams, and we showed canceled Saints Row games that also, I don't know if you know about this website, but when we showed off that PSP Saints Row game years ago, we released the ISO, and it's kept it's archived on a website that's just like, oh, here's like tons of old like material and beta builds of games that have been donated to us or found on the internet.
That's cool.
It's on Scene64. Yeah, it's. If you're ever interested in that type of stuff for like the history of games, you can type in almost any game. They have like really early screenshots, from years before, and then sometimes, of course, they get stuff donated from developers like we did.
And it's a very kind of secretive, mysterious industry in a lot of ways, and I wish it were more open, especially like after a game's been announced or released, because I think the problems we solve are really interesting, and there can be like crazy silly like tricks we're doing to like create a certain feeling for the player without actually doing the thing, if that makes sense. Like there's all sort of like smoke and mirrors, sort of like almost like magic tricks that we're doing, and like it would feel good to show how we're doing the trick.
It is funny to see just how many, like not everything in a game, but there's a good amount of stuff where the final like way something is implemented is always just like when you can actually see how it's working with the curtains pulled back. It's like, oh, that's really simple. Yeah. Wow. I brought this up as an example before, but like in Fallout 3, there are some subway trains or some type of train car that moves around. And they didn't make vehicles to do that. It's just a NPC rendered invisible wearing a train as a hat. So it's just an NPC walking around with a train hat, and it's
That's
like,
awesome.
it works.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff and then we're doing some crazy tricks in our new one. So it'd be cool to pull back the curtain on that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Like one example I give is an old thing with Jewel. There was a ability we wanted to have where you like override the turret and then it starts like spinning around and so it will like shoot anyone who's near it. And at first I was like, okay, so you're gonna have the turret spin around, it's gonna like shoot these bullets out, and we're gonna do all these ray casts to collide with an enemy, and like it's gonna hit some enemies, and then like AI was like, no, like don't do any of that. Like that's way too expensive, and you'll get the same thing if you just say, if you have the turret spinning fast enough, and then you just collect people within the radius and say, okay, deal damage to them. Like,
okay.
Because then, even though it's like not perfectly in sync of the turret shooting a bullet and them getting damage, it happens so quickly there's so much other stuff happening that people don't really notice that.
Yeah, especially when you're in the middle of combat and you're just like trying to not die and shoot stuff.
Yeah, and you're always trying to do things in a smart way that saves you work in game design. Not because developers are lazy. I hear that get thrown around sometimes.
Yeah, that's a common thing you can see thrown around the internet sometimes.
But because we need to, because we want to make more cool stuff and we want to ship the game on time and we want to have time to polish and bug fix.
You want to be you want to be efficient when you can.
Yes.
When you have an easier solution for something that does basically the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Then that saves you time to make something else that's cool.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So something I want to ask you, I've asked a couple other people this too. For the work you do, are there any games that are inspirations for you? I mean, even more just in general, like were there specific games that inspired you to work in the games industry?
To work in the games industry in general, I mean, like I mentioned before, I grew up watching my dad play Resident Evil, and I loved that game. I loved the atmosphere it created.
Which one was that? Was that 4?
4, yeah. Well,
okay.
I watched him play Resident Evil 1 remade for the GameCube.
Yep.
And I remember loving the atmosphere from that, and like I thought the story was like so good, and like I look back on it now, and like the dialogue is so bad and so cheesy.
I can never tell with Resident Evil how intentional they are being with trying to make like a B-movie schlock fest, because it's exactly that, and it's great, but at the same time it's just like, how serious is this?
Yeah, in fact I remember in elementary school over the course of several lunches, relayed to everyone at my table the story of Resident Evil.
Oh, man.
So I'd like go home, watch my dad play a little bit, and then I'd come back to the lunchroom the next day and be like, all right, guys, this is what happened. And everyone would be like, what happened?
Oh, that's rad.
But yeah, Resident Evil, I think Resident Evil 4 is like one of the best games ever made. I loved BioShock. The original BioShock was so good. Again, like that sense of atmosphere. I really enjoyed Zelda games too. I loved, Link to the Past, Wind Waker. Those are games that certainly inspired me. And then since we make like more action-oriented games, I've picked up some of those and have been inspired a lot by things like Uncharted.
Oh yeah.
The newest Doom game I think is great.
Yep. We streamed that a long time ago, but I love that Doom like soft reboot. Even if it wasn't a good game, which it is, it at least delivered us like an extremely good metal soundtrack.
Yeah,
like that alone is like worth $60 for Doom.
And they spent time, you can tell, like to create that feeling and create that atmosphere, like that moment that everyone talks about, where you go up in the elevator and it's playing like da-na-na-na-na, and then like it like you cock the shotgun like right on the beat, and that
stuff is some of my favorite stuff, like when people can pull off that type of stuff in games and really nail those moments, especially when they're able to actually tie gameplay into that and it's not just a cinematic or something. But also just thinking about Doom, like design wise, I've always wondered, like, how hard must it be to make something that is essentially still trying to be like an old school first-person shooter and design that to be something like, what word am I looking for? Something palatable to like a modern audience, where first-person shooters have like have moved on a lot to like a completely different like structure from they've been in the past.
Yeah, I bet it's hard.
Yeah.
But you see, like, some games are able to pull it off really well, and others aren't. Like, Sonic's tried and struggled for a long time to make its way to 3D, right?
Yeah.
And yet, like, Mario is done, like, each new game, for, like, a Mario or Zelda game, I'm like, all right, how do they innovate and do something different enough to warrant a new game? And like Nintendo somehow always pulls it off. So I think you have to probably find. I think it's good to look at what is the feeling that those older games instilled in me, and how can we recreate that in maybe a modern way that innovates in some things. And if you look at like Breath of the Wild. That's exactly what they were thinking when they were making that. And in fact, they said that they had sort of gone away throughout the series of their original mission of it being a truly open experience. So you can you can explore this world and go wherever you want and do things in various orders. That's what the original Zelda was like. But then from there, it became like it was still like open spaces and open worlds, and you could do side quests and stuff. But there was always this linearity to them where you couldn't actually go forward until you got the certain item.
Right. You couldn't go to Dungeon 7 right away like in the original. It was always a specific chain of events.
Yeah, and then so they kind of went back to the roots in that sense for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And the original Zelda and the Breath of the Wild are extremely different games, but they both hit that same feeling.
Yeah. By the way, have you ever seen any of their GDC talks?
I went to the one for Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
Okay. Was that the one where they actually showed like their prototype they made?
Yes.
That was okay. That stuff is so cool.
It was wild.
Yeah. For people who don't know, the prototype they made for Breath of the Wild was straight up just using the graphics of the original Zelda, and they were implementing like really basic versions of the systems that are in the final game just to see, can it work in this old style? Okay, let's move to 3D.
Yeah, and that can be a really useful strategy for prototyping. Like when you're prototyping as a designer, you want to prove the fun as fast as possible. And so that can be doing a paper prototype, if that makes sense. It especially works for like something that's turn-based. But I bet you could kind of get a little creative and maybe do a paper prototype for a first-person shooter.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But if not, then you want to do something very easy with things that are existing. Like if there's like assets that you already have that you can cobble together, things that you can sort of hack together. And, as you get later on in the project, you want to do less hackery.
Right.
And so in the beginning of this project, I was just like, like just to get the thing to work.
Yep.
Because, none of our systems were made, and I just needed to prove out this sort of feeling that I wanted to make. And so now when we prototype things, we want to do it in a way that could, be cleaned up a bit afterwards once we decide we want to put some more time into it, but can ultimately is a good base to start from. But like, I was just making doing a design for a mission recently, and one thing that I was just doing to prove it out, because I was just doing a paper design where I was just writing in a text document, like, then the player does this and the player does this.
Yep.
And now that we sort of have this world we've made, you can actually go in the world and see how these spaces feel, see how they feel to move around in. So I used that, and my first test was to be like, okay, type it out on my Word doc, then go into the game and pretend like these things are happening.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go through this space, and now like, there's some guys there. Yeah, I better do this thing, and now I'm going to do this thing. And that helped me, and that made me like go back to the paper design and restructure things and take some things out, and so you want to, as cheaply and quickly as possible, rule out the things that aren't working, find what's working, and lean more into those.
Yeah, because it's definitely a big thing. Like if you're able to figure out what is actually fun earlier, you got a lot more time to make that even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
One more question. What is a typical day for you like here? Because for some people, I feel like every day they have is completely different from the next because what they're doing is jumping between so many different people and disciplines.
Yeah.
That it's every day is different.
Yeah, it can vary for me. So it depends on what phase you're working on in a mission.
Okay.
So like earlier on in the project, it was very much like sit down and be creative and
Yeah.
think of things and brainstorm. And then you like type things out, and eventually you make a spec, which is line by line what happens in this mission.
Right.
So I like that period of time because I get to be creative, but I also feel like I get nothing done because being creative, it's something that comes and goes, and like sometimes you'll have like just 15 minutes where like it feels like the floodgates are open and you're having all the best ideas in the world and you type them down, and then you kind of get writer's block. I think designer's block is like a thing, and then you'll just be banging your head against the wall trying to figure out a solution, and then maybe you go talk to someone, you have a brainstorm, and that can help to like jostle things and unclog the creative gears in your mind, and then you have a solution for something. It involves a lot of talking to people, figuring out where dependencies lie. Like, okay, I want to do this thing, but it involves getting this asset from this person, or like I need to get approval from this director because they might have a concern about it, or I just need to follow up with my lead, or have like meetings with people, talk to people who are heavily involved in the mission. Most of the time that's narrative, that's writing, but a lot of times my day is also spent scripting, because designers here also implement a lot of what they make, and we have this visual scripting language where you're dragging these nodes of logic. If you think back to OG Game Maker, and you're hooking things together, and it's very powerful. You can do a lot with it, and you can't do everything that programming does, but that's how we build our missions, through scripting. And so it's either usually spent, I would say, thinking about things and designing and writing up specs, or like talking to people, going to meetings, or implementing things with scripting.
Okay. And out of that entire process, what's your favorite part of it?
Not the meetings part, but I consider myself like half technically minded and half creative minded.
Okay.
So like I like both of those things, but I also there are times when I've been scripting for a while and I'm like, man, when do I get to be creative again? And then there are times when I'm like sitting down being really creative and I'm like, man, I just kind of want to like I want to have a little more structure to my day and actually be cranking this stuff out and actually get to see it and have it come to life. I would say I lean a bit more into the into the implementation and getting to build the things out.
Yeah, I'm sure being able to do that, leading to actually seeing your ideas in the game also is probably pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
Even early on, I bet.
Yeah, and it feels really cool when other people contribute to what you're working on.
Yeah.
So when like that moment when you've been working with like temporary animations, temporary asset, temporary art, and in this like blocked out gray box environment, and then you get like some real art in there, and then you get some voice lines that go in recorded from actual voice actors. Like it's such a cool moment to be like, oh my god, wait, this is actually a real thing. Because for like 90% of the time, you're just talking. You're just talking about, or you're just working in very temporary, ugly, unfinished spaces.
Right. Yeah. We have somebody in chat named It's Dr. Claw saying, I like this James guy. Know him from his Wii Quidditch days.
Oh, does he? I might have an idea who this is.
But yeah, for one final thing, since it's a little past 5 and it's time to wrap up, I ask pretty much every developer this: are you playing any other games right now? And also, what do you do outside of work aside from video games?
Yeah. So I've been playing some mobile games. I've been playing this game called Downwell on mobile.
Oh, I know Downwell. Yeah, that game's great.
It's so addicting.
Yeah.
So it's a roguelite where you're falling down a well, but then you shoot bullets like from your feet.
Yep.
And the more you shoot, you sort of you slow your fall. So you don't want to slam into enemies and you want to kill enemies, but you run out of bullets and then you have to reload by touching the ground or booping an enemy on their head.
Yep.
And it's a roguelite, so every time you die, you start over and you try to get through all the levels. I'm getting farther and farther, but it's very, very addicting.
I had like a 3 or 4 day period where I bought that on Steam for like $1.50 or something, and that was all I played.
Yeah.
And I got obsessed with it.
Nice.
But yeah, that game's really great. I forgot that it was on phones.
It works well.
Yeah, I bet that game does work well.
It controls surprisingly well on the phone. And it's got its hooks in me, which like I'm not usually like a roguelite kind of guy.
Yeah, same.
But that one does it for me.
Yeah.
And then outside of work, I go climbing with my friends.
Okay.
So there's like a pretty cool bouldering gym around here, and so I'll go every Wednesday. And me and my friends, we now watch Survivor like every Thursday, so I'll be going to that tonight.
Okay.
And it's like I'm not a big reality show kind of guy, but I do see the appeal when you have all your friends together.
Yeah.
And you're like, there might be annoying people, but you like make fun of them, and you got snacks and drinks, and you can like talk over it. It's not a big deal.
Totally.
And we also like bet on who's gonna like win the reality show. And I won last season.
Oh, nice.
Just saying.
Nice.
So that's like fun when you have like some money on the line.
Yeah. How early on in the show do you make the bet of who's gonna?
After everyone watches the first episode and then you pick.
Oh man.
Yeah.
How many episodes long is Survivor? I forget. Is it like 12?
Yeah, it's something like
12?
that.
Okay, that's what I thought. Oh man. That's a long time bet you gotta hit on there.
It is long. You gotta have a lot of foresight.
Yeah, that's the only way I watch reality stuff too. It's entirely like a spectator thing. It's not nearly as good if it's just you.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd watch too much reality television alone.
Yeah, that reminds me. No, it wasn't Survivor. I was gonna bring it. I knew somebody from like a college class who like. They just left college. They just quit entirely because it's like, I'm going to be on a reality TV show.
Really?
It wasn't. I thought it was Survivor, but it wasn't. It was actually Real World.
Oh, okay.
Which was still existing back then.
Yeah.
It felt like it was really, really late for that, but I guess it was still around, or at least some like spin-off of Real World. But
that's crazy.
Either way,
I don't know if I could live in a reality show.
Yeah, no, like the Real World or the Big Brother style stuff. It just seems terrible and also heavily scripted, anyways. So that's the point.
They tell you how to be. It seems like.
Okay, you're not being dramatic enough. Can you get like real bitchy at somebody?
Yeah.
Okay, go. Get mad at the camera. But yeah, thanks, man, for being on and talking about.
Thanks for having me.
Design stuff. It'll be super cool when we can finally talk about stuff and I can bring you back on and talk about.
It'll be great.
The process of some of that stuff. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. If you've missed our previous streams, we keep those on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/VolitionTube. Pretty much all of our previous streams are there, so if you've missed out on those dev talks I brought up earlier or our older break the builds of the various Saints Row games, you can go and check those out. I really heavily recommend any of the break the builds. They're all really good, especially 2's is pretty good, and I think 4 was pretty great too because we increased. Through the console, we were able to like increase the player size in 4 so big that we were like 10 times the size of the whole world of the game. It was that was rad. It didn't crash the game somehow.
Really?
Yeah.
Handled that?
I don't know how it handled it, but it did.
Cool.
But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Josh Stinson, the video editor here, and today on the couch we had
James Kotzian, mission designer,
and we had Mike moderating the chat as always. Thank you, Mike, and we will see you next week. Later.
Cool. Bye.